Okay, hello everyone, and welcome today. Welcome to our webinar, 3 Simple Secrets to Career Growth Without Climbing Ladders. My name is Corinne Wendell. I'm the chair of the APA Women in Planning Division. I've been with the division almost 6 years, so about 5 years now. And our division actually began way back in 1979. So we are almost 41 years old as a division. And we have been providing tools and resources and support and community to all women in the planning field for this long. And so we carry that torch through these amazing women who volunteer with the division, and then through the members, you all, which is almost at that 3,000 member mark. And today we bring you a really special program that's focused on your career, what you love to do in life, and to just find, another footing, just try to find that next level. And so we're really excited to have this presentation today. I'm going to pass it over to Melissa Dickens, who's going to then introduce our speaker for today. So enjoy, and if you have any questions at the end, please let us know, because that is what we're here for. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Corinne. Hi, everyone. Melissa Dickens. I'm the Director of Membership for the Women in Planning Division. I've been with the division a couple of years, and I'm really thrilled to have another opportunity to collaborate with Maya today. Maya has been involved in some of our other webinars on career growth and salary negotiation, so she may be a familiar face to some of you, but if not, you're in for a treat today. Maya Sharfy is a creative agent of change, a doer, and a big picture thinker. Maya founded Build Yourself workshop, which helps women in creative fields like planning move past the obstacles that hold them back in their business and careers. She also works to make industries and workplaces better for women's talent, better places for women's talent. So I think this is such a great nickname. She was named a cheerleader with devil horns by students. And Maya is skilled at helping ambitious and creative women see beyond limiting mindsets to envision and achieve more than they thought possible for themselves, and all on their own terms. Maya is a trained facilitator. She's run a research effort on women in social impact design for the Harvard Business School. And she's a founding member of the Equity Roundtable of the Boston Society of Architects, and was named as one of Impact Design Hub's Social Impact Design 40 Under 40. So Maya's going to share with us this webinar, which will help us get some tools on how to get a clear career direction with confidence and creativity. And as part of the webinar, she's also going to share some details at the end. She has a special career growth program, and she is offering that to women in planning members for a special price, and that's available for a limited time. So we'll be hearing more about that at the end of the program as well. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Maya. Thank you so much.
Yeah, excited to be here. Yeah, really excited to be here. I love collaborating with the division. Actually, so when I share some of the details around that program, there is a special offer for members of the division, and also some of the proceeds of it go to support the division and some of the very cool things that they're doing. So we'll get there and chat about it. I hope you're as excited about what they're doing as I am. So hi, everybody. Great to meet you. Excited to be here with you. Excited to train you. This is my absolutely favorite thing to train. As Melissa mentioned, I do train on salary negotiation, and I've done that with the division a couple times now. But what we're going to talk about today is just, it's like, it makes my heart sing. So there's nowhere else I'd rather be. Love doing it. So just a little bit about me. I am a career strategist. So I am a career coach, but I also think very strategically. I was trained in design, and to think from a design thinking perspective about how to get where you want to go in your career. And as Melissa mentioned, I'm a cheerleader with devil horns, because I push my clients. I can sometimes see what's possible for my clients and push them to do things before they feel 100% ready, because sometimes it's actually limiting beliefs or perfectionism or internalized bias. So we're going to chat a little bit about that today. So I actually have a dual training. As I mentioned, I'm trained as a designer. I have my master's in landscape architecture from Harvard's design school. Actually, one of my last studios was joint with planning. So I worked with planners and enjoyed it. But I'm also a trained women's empowerment facilitator. So we're going to talk a lot about how issues of gender and internalized bias actually can get in the way sometimes when we think about what we want to achieve in our career or when we actually go after it. Now, I do want to say that if you identify as a man, you are 100% welcome here. Or if you identify not as a woman, I'm so glad that you're here. What you're going to learn today is going to be helpful for you in your career. And you're also going to get a little bit more insight into some of the challenges that women can face in the workplace. So you can walk out being a better ally. So glad that you're here. I also have my undergrad in urban studies. So very much an urbanist at heart. Actually, I've never owned a car I've never owned a car in my life. So I've been trying to skate by being an urbanist in walkable environments my entire life. So I trained the American Institute of Architects, Americans for the Arts. I worked with the APA. And I also am a huge fan of road trips. I get me in a car, send me off to look at industrial landscapes, and I am happy as a clam. So it's a little bit about me. Okay, so before we start, just word to the wise. I know that sometimes I will show up at webinars and I'll be thinking about 18 things in my grocery list, but you made the time to be here today. And I really want to make sure, and I will work very hard to do this, that you walk out with at least 2.5 insights that you can put into place in your life right now, 5 minutes after the webinar, even take a quick action to make it happen. And so do yourself a favor, turn off your phone, close your tabs, get rid of any distractions, pull out your knitting or whatever helps you kind of just focus, or, your notebook, because you're going to hear a lot of stuff today that you're going to want to write down. And, really, again, very much about action, moving you forward and helping you get a next step. Okay, so enough about me. Let's talk about you. So which one of these sounds like you? So maybe you're in a role that's familiar and safe, but maybe it's not as satisfying as you want it to be. It might even look really great on paper, but you have this sense that there's something else out there for you. Maybe you feel like you are implementing someone else's ideas, but you want to be having more of a sense of authorship and direction in your career. And maybe you feel busy with other people's stuff and you want to be focusing your time and energy on your stuff and feeling less stressed and more insightful and more inspired. Or maybe you're watching others step up into their leadership and they're getting promotions and opportunities. And you're wondering, how did that happen? How'd they get that? How'd they get chosen? Is there something, or there's some unwritten rules that no one's telling me about? And you're thinking, what's my path? Or perhaps you are feeling stuck in your current path. Maybe you feel like your career path just evolved, but you never really actively chose it. Or maybe you had your first kid, or there was some kind of big shift in your industry, just, you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you just feel like you've gotten stuck or you've gotten sidelined. Maybe you even transitioned to something, you made this big change and you feel like, there's something, I'm not 100% sure that this was the right move. Maybe you're thinking you want to transition, but you're not sure what you want to transition to, and you're worried about getting it wrong or wrong again, and you don't quite know where to start. So I want to hear from you in the chat, and feel free, find that chat box and either send it directly to me, or if you feel comfortable, send it to everyone. But what is one career goal that you have? Do you want to make a transition? Do you want to level up? Do you want to do more work that's aligned? Do you want to have job responsibilities? Do you want to make a shift or a pivot or raise your salary? Find that chat box and let us know, or let me know, what is one career goal that you have? Okay, so I'm getting some great stuff here. Someone wants to raise their salary. Ooh, I'm excited for you. Yes, someone wants to be a keynote speaker. Yes, I see you on that stage. I can't see you, but I see you there. Yes, more responsibilities to prove yourself. Yes, yeah, I just actually had a coaching call with someone today who was saying, we were talking about title, but it wasn't really about the title. It was about those meaty project opportunities, right? And the title just is an expression of the stuff that's actually in her job. Transitioning, someone is transitioning from one career into a career in urban planning. Cool, welcome, excited. Figure out what direction to go, planning for your first child, right? Sequencing those things, right? Fearing getting sidelined, maybe even before it's happened, feeling fulfilled, like you're serving your community. We have such good stuff, leadership and management skills. So excited about some of the stuff I'm hearing here. And yes, we're going to help you get a next step to move forward. Love it, love it. Okay, so then I want to ask you another question. What is one thing, because we're getting a little bit more specific here, if you could change one thing in your career, right? Maybe feel free to draw from any of the things that I talked about there, right? You know, getting opportunities, being recognized, feeling like your work's more fulfilling. What is one thing that you would choose? Okay, so we have some people who are wanting to transition from the private sector to the public sector. Yeah, fantastic. Get a promotion. Woo woo. I'll be cheering you on. And I hope today, I actually think today you're going to be able to walk out with something that will help you basically get here from that promotion. Excited for you. Fantastic. More education, narrowing my focus. Yeah. So, you know, really glad that you're here today, because we're going to talk about how do you get a little bit more narrow so that you can grow without feeling like you're giving up the parts of yourself that you don't want to give up. Yeah, because sometimes we fear being specialized because then we think we're going to lose the things we want, right? So yeah, many of us fear that, you know, we want to grow, but we fear that we're going to have to give up the stuff that we love in order to do it. Maybe we look and we see the models out there of what leadership looks like, and maybe doesn't look like people have personal lives, or they're on the road all the time, or, you know, we just see a certain way that they you know, we see these models of how it's done and we think, I'm not sure that I want that. Or maybe we're afraid that we're going to have to lose our creativity in order to grow into what we want to grow into. Or maybe we think, you know, I just don't want to do all this like climbing ladders, career stuff. Like, I don't want to worry about the politics. I just want to do good work and have it speak for itself, right? I've had so many of my clients tell me that. Or maybe you think, you know, maybe you're wondering, you know, is there really something out there that would be fulfilling without having to give too much up? What if I'm just one of those people who's like looking for something else, and I'm always looking for like the shiny object. What if there's nothing out there and I'm just lying to myself, or, you know, it's just not there and I'm going to be disappointed, right? So, you know, if you're resonating with any of this, please feel free to just type in the chat box and say yes, or, you know, share anything about what's going on with you. So you might either have that constant itch that there's something more out there for you. And, you know, is there something more? There's something about this that's not quite right. And, you know, be worrying with yourself about whether or not you can want what you want. Or maybe you're constantly feeling like you're figuring out how to figure out what you need to figure out. You know, maybe you've read a lot of self-help books, but they haven't given you the answers that you've needed. And you don't want to read another book or do another worksheet, or, you know, go to a panel where like you learn some things that are kind of like sideways, but not quite what you want. Your self-motivation about how to figure out how to get that career you want is exhausted, and your self-doubt about how to move forward is kind of big. And, you know, you really want to have those things, but you're worried that it's not possible. Okay, so one more question for you. You know, when we talk about some of those things that I shared, right? Not wanting to give up what you love, wanting to just be able to do the good work, you know, wondering if it's really out there, figuring out how to figure out, you know, is there any, what's holding you back from a fulfilling career? Share with me in the chat box. Yeah, so some people are saying that they have limited resources, time and energy, right? Time and energy. I don't want to lose family time. I worry that I'm going to have to give up the work-life balance. Oh, yes. So many of my clients have felt that way. What's holding me back? Fear of losing stability and the risk. Yes. Lack of training, competition in the workforce. Yeah. Okay. So what you're going to learn today is going to be so helpful, because many of those things are actually part of the cohesive process, the things you have to address in order to develop a confident career path that integrates your creativity, right? So I'm going to show you my step-by-step process of how you do that. And we're going to talk about how to do it when you don't have a lot of time, when you fear that what you want is not out there, where you're worried that, you know, there's competition and you're not going to get the opportunities you want. I'm going to walk you through step-by-step each piece that you need to have in place in order to get that career path that also helps you feel continuously creative and collaborative. So the first step is really confidence, and we're going to talk about how do you own your plan A career in life instead of just defaulting to plan B, and how do you actually get a day-to-day practice to do that. We're going to talk about clarity. And so this is where I think a lot of you are going to get a lot out of it. How do you map out a plan for your career trajectory? How do you do it in ways that allow you to bring more of yourself into it and not give up the pieces that you really love? And then creativity. How do you infuse fulfilling projects, initiatives into your work? And all of these things roll up together into a cohesive approach to career design and to career growth on your own terms, right? So that base of confidence, that clarity that helps you figure out what to spend your limited time and energy on because you know what you're trying to achieve and what you can say no to. And then that creativity that's infused into everything you do, whether it's how you are creative and the creative risks you take, or how you use creativity to get to where you ultimately want to go. Now, before we dig in, I just want to share a little bit of my story with you so that you know how I got here, right? Because I learned this the hard way. I learned, and so that you understand how I learned all of this. So, okay, 6 years ago, I had way too many side projects. I was running a speaker series for creatives and entrepreneurs. I was running a co-working space. I was running a design consultancy focused on creative placemaking. I feel like there's like 6 other things that I'm forgetting. And I had way too many side projects and I wanted to do work that mattered. But, I didn't really know what to say yes to and what to say no to. Things would come, I was constantly just in the deciding things like, being like, I don't know, like people were waiting on answers for me all the time. It was definitely not a less is more situation. I was also severely underpaid. So my accountant, who is a family friend, I wasn't supposed to hear this. The word got back to me via my mother. But he said, I don't understand how Maya is doing so much, but she's making so little money. Now, maybe you can relate, so some of the things I was struggling with, I didn't know what to focus on. I didn't know what to say yes to or what to say no to. I was worried that I would get it wrong, right? I would pick something, I would pick a focus, I would pick something to invest my time and energy into, whether it was the freelance work I was doing, or should I do this co-working space, or should I go after these projects or those projects? I was worried that whatever decision I made, it would be wrong. I would get it wrong and I would be unhappy and unsatisfied. And I just didn't feel enough. I didn't feel experienced enough. I didn't feel creative enough. I didn't feel established enough. I didn't feel smart enough. It didn't matter that I had, nice things on my CV. I was selling projects to people who were 15, 20 years older than me. And I just constantly felt like everyone was going to find out that I didn't know what I was doing, that I was, I was out of my league. And I can't tell you how much mental energy I was spending just not feeling good enough, right? And I'm hearing from a lot of you are saying, yes, I don't feel enough as well, right? This I have this big position, I just got this big opportunity and I'm constantly feeling insecure about it, right? So here's what finally changed. I finally decided that I needed to be the one to decide what I wanted. I was constantly going to mentors and friends and guides and saying, what should I choose? What should I want? What should I do? And I needed to be the one to actually make that decision and take ownership over that decision. And today what we're going to talk about is a process for you to do that if you're feeling stuck. I also realized I needed to take bold action, and I needed to take that action before I felt ready, right? I needed to say, okay, I'm taking this action. I feel these feelings. I'm doing it anyways. And that was the only way that I was going to get past those feelings. And we're going to talk about that too. And once I did that, all kinds of amazing things happened. So great projects and opportunities came my way, right? I got the chance to help Friends of the Highline craft the vision for the new network of like-minded projects across the country that they built, the Highline Network. I got invited, I got to advocate for amazing things on my projects, like, convince the Americans for the Arts to let us hire artists to work on some of the consulting projects that I was working on so that we could walk the walk. I got invited to review NEA grants and got to take my values around, community engagement and social impact and the arts and bringing those together and use that to actually select projects for the country to fund. The amazing things that I was looking for started to come to me because I was getting clear on what I wanted. And I also got more recognized for the things that I was doing. So I was named a 40 under 40 in the social impact design field. I was asked onto panels and I got to collaborate with really cool people. Now, more happened, but I got to do it with less. So for the first time in my career, and I was trained in, studios where like you're supposed to be working on Saturday night and you sleep under your desk. I finally achieved that 40-hour work week that was so elusive for me before. And I was also making more money as I was doing it. So that less is more thing, right? I started doing less and I started achieving more. And my income continued to grow. And I was able to also make more time for some of my creative pursuits. So I ended up getting to hire a friend of mine who is an artist and, take a couple weeks off and just, make some paintings around my Rust Belt road trip. And just do that because I had the time and I had the money to be able to do that because I'd been able to achieve that clear vision and then be able to use my time more wisely. Now, I want to say, this isn't just my story. This isn't just something that's happened for me. I've also seen it happen with client after client. So this is Sriyoshi Banerjee, who's one of my clients. So she actually works for New York's Economic Development Corporation. And so when she finally got clear on how she wanted to grow in her field, she was able to create and position a design excellence initiative at work. She joined a board. She's launching a side business that helps, that trains people in writing more humane and more story-driven RFPs. I actually just recently heard from Sriyoshi that she just created a new partnership between herself and a couple of other organizations in New York to help bring designers, help small businesses reopen after COVID and to get them access to the insight and strategy and technical assistance that they need. So when you have that clear vision and when you know what you're ultimately trying to do, I should also say Sriyoshi has a young kid, right? She's just a few years after having her first child. So when you're clear on the big vision, then you can actually achieve the things that you want and do it without giving up all the other parts of you. So I just want you to imagine that feeling of being able to be doing more of what you want and have less of what you don't want, and to feel like you didn't have to, give up everything you wanted to get what you did want, right? Where it didn't have to be just this, zero-sum trade-off where you actually had that career, that impact, that influence, that compensation that you wanted, and you didn't feel like you had to fold yourself into someone else's story, someone else's path in order to do it. You did it your own way. All right, so how do we do this? Where do we start, right? Let's operationalize this. Let's give you the tools to start making it happen. So the first tool is confidence. All right, so a little context for you to understand. You are very likely, if you're a woman, you are very likely not getting the same opportunities that men are getting. Men get a little bit more of the kind of fast forward effect. So it turns out there's actually a study from the research firm Catalyst that showed that men were more likely than women to get promoted on the basis of their potential, right? We could see him in this role. We could see him running this agency. We could see him running this initiative. And women in the study, their promotion decisions were on the basis of their past accomplishments, right? You've done this before, so you can do this again. So because of bias, we are willing to give men more benefit of the doubt, right? It's almost kind of like, the do not pass go card, right? It's like we fast forward them and they get these extra benefits where we can see more for them, and therefore we give them more opportunities to stretch, to grow, to prove themselves. Now, there's also another factor at play, which is that men also have more access to the kind of organizational intel that helps them even understand what those career growth opportunities are. So if you've ever kind of seen all the guys going out to lunch together and you're like, how did that happen? And who invites who? And why didn't I get invited? We know that women are less likely than men to get mentored informally by people who, by the way, if you're a woman of color, this is doubly true. We invest and mentor and form relationships with people who remind us of ourselves. And so in your organization or your field, if the leadership is largely white and male, it's possible that you're not getting the same access to mentorship and even to, mentorship on business and strategic and kind of a high level, political impact kinds of things, the things that help us make ultimate impact. Now, it's not just happening out there, it's also happening in here, right? So even if you are getting access to these opportunities, you might just not feel ready, right? So what that is called is imposter syndrome, this feeling that you're not enough, that you're not qualified to have what you have, that people are going to find out that you really don't have what it takes. So When you see fewer models like you feel like, well, I have to wait, maybe I'm not ready, I'm not ready. I need to go get this second degree. I need to go get this extra certification. I need to go get this extra training before I'm ready to do it, versus actually stepping up into those stretch opportunities. And this happens in elementary school. We train boys to, we yell at girls more when they raise their hand and when they don't raise their hand and they call out of turn, right? We expect boys to take risks, to make mistakes, right? It's like more common for us to see a guy raising his hand when he doesn't quite know the answer, but he's thinking it out as he speaks, right? So you've been probably socialized all your life to wait until you feel 100% ready in order to go for it. And even if you're not, there's probably a whole bunch of stuff that's on your plate that is cluttering up your to-do list, because we also give women all kinds of office housework that we don't give men, because we expect women to be nurturers and caregivers and to take care of other people's needs instead of prioritizing their own. So I've had many clients who were like, I didn't realize I was printing out the agenda for everyone. I was managing the project and doing the admin, and it's not even my project. I realized I was babying my direct reports, and I just oh gosh, I am an inadvertent micromanager when I was trying to actually be a good manager, right? And so all this stuff is stuff that clutters us up and keeps us from getting clear on what we want, and then sometimes taking the risk to ask for what we want. So what do you do about it? Coach's secret. So we learn to feel ready by acting ready. You can't wait to feel ready until you start acting. You actually have to start acting to generate that feeling of being ready. And you can do it in 5 minutes a day. You don't need to die. This doesn't need to be like a, 1 week silent retreat where you reflect on, your childhood. That stuff's great, but you can actually start to build that confidence day to day in 5 minutes a day. I call it power habits. Power habits are very small on time, but big on fear and challenge, right? That's how you actually remake your mindset, is that it's not about the time you put in, it's really about your willingness to take small risks and to kind of feel those butterflies. So here's a couple examples, and these are classic mindset and confidence challenges that my students and my clients face, and a power habit that helps you move past it. So if you struggle with people pleasing, I put clients on a no diet where they have to say no to something 3 times a week, right? They have to keep a little log and say no to something. It helps them figure out, oh, wait, I could have said no to that earlier, or, oh, I could have said no, but I needed to message it differently. And it helps you realize that you can say no to more than you think you can, right? One of my clients just stopped printing up the agenda, and, it wasn't a big deal. She realized she had all this stuff on her plate that really wasn't moving the needle and that nobody else cared about, right? Perfectionism, right? So I have my clients aim for 80% perfection on one task per day. So I had a client who was over perfecting these grant applications or these grant reports, but nobody read them. She needed to take that energy and use it to craft a new program that she could raise money for, right? Instead of kind of, trying to do everything the right way and the good girl way, right? For some of my clients, it's responding to emails in bullet points rather than full sentences, right? That's the 80% perfect version. For some of my clients who feel like, well, I'm not an expert yet. I don't feel like an expert. I feel imposter syndrome. I say, okay, great. I want you to propose an idea or solution at every meeting you go to, log it. Or, one of my clients who's building a reputation for herself, don't wait till you feel ready. Start acting like an expert. So pitch a podcast per week. The first 2 podcasts she pitched, she got, right? So, I was waiting and all I had to do was send a 3-paragraph email and I got a yes, right? So those are power habits. So actually, I want to ask you, what is one thing, type in the chat box, what is one thing that you would be doing in your career if you felt more confidence? Share it in the chat box. And while you type that in, I'm hearing from some people, I turned down a role because I didn't feel ready. Maybe, I've been examining that decision since. Was that my career fast forward, right? Oh, sorry, I know the question's not up here, but the question is, what is one thing you would be doing in your career if you felt more confident? Pushing back on unreasonable deadlines. Yes, 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 right? That's like that no diet. Yes. Cold emails to places I want to work. Yes. Or maybe asking people to introduce you, right? Asking for favors. Yes. As an undergraduate student, I would reach out to more cold emails. Yeah. Applying for more jobs. Yes. I once actually had to assign a client to have at least a third of the jobs that she applied for to feel like she was underqualified for them because her imposter syndrome was so big. It actually skewed her perception about what she was really qualified for. So we just had to be like, great, if you feel underqualified for it, that doesn't mean anything mean anything. And like, let's make sure that stuff is in your job search list. And she ended up getting one of those jobs. And now she's not bored at work because she's doing work that challenges her. Okay, so let's move on to the second thing that you need to know, which is, all right, how do you get clear on where you want to go in your career? How do you get a career trajectory and how do you map that out? So tell me in the chat, what is the question that you find yourself continually spinning on when it comes to your career and the direction that you want to go? Is this it? Am I too old to make a change? No, you're not. I'm just going to answer that. We can talk more about that in the Q&A afterwards. How do I get started in urban design when entry-level jobs want experience? Yeah, some of these are such amazing questions, and we'll have some time at the end to do Q&A, so hold on to them because we can dive into specific strategy if I don't cover it here. I can see what I ultimately want to accomplish, but how do I get there? Yes. Oh, I'm so excited for you. This is exactly what you're going to learn here. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so I want to take you through my 4-step process on how to create a career goal and then a step-by-step trajectory for how to get there. Because sometimes we try to like figure it out, like maybe I'll be on a retreat and I'll just know it. No, it doesn't work that way, right? Your projects don't work that way. Your career doesn't work that way. But there is a simple step-by-step process that you can take in order to answer that question and then figure out exactly what you need to do in order to get there. And the first step is that you got to start with you, right? You are the person we're designing this career for. If you're struggling with figuring out what to want, you have to start with what drives you, right? So questions like, what are your skills? What do you love doing? What do you want to achieve? And specifically, if you're thinking, I don't know where to start, like, let's get really, really specific here. What are the hard skills you have? What are the soft skills you have and your talents, right? Things like, I do, for one of my clients, I do, incredible interviews. I do great user research and interview-based work, right? Another person might be a soft skill is I'm great at getting stuff done. I'm a great project manager, or I'm really good at client conflict, right? Okay, well, then maybe that means I should be in forward-facing roles where I can maximize the amount of negotiating and kind of smoothing out complex issues on projects, right? Then there's also aspirations. What do you want to achieve in your career, right? For one of my clients, it's making her field a great place for other parents, or it can be achievements you want to make through your work, right? Mine, I want to close the influence gap. I think the pay gap's important, but I also want to get women in positions where they can actually make a major influence and a major impact, right? So once you know what your core assets are, right? These are core ingredients, then you can take those, just like a recipe, you can take those core ingredients and start saying, well, if I put these together, what are potential futures that someone with these core assets or ingredients could have, right? It's about translating your strengths or aspirations into goals and roles. And that's where you can start to say, well, I'm interested in fashion and I'm interested in tech. What could I do? What are some things I could do that would bring these things together, right? And there's so many things you could do that could bring them together. So here's just a couple of example goals. Lead a major museum's website redesign, right? Create places that connect people across socioeconomic difference. That was my goal when I was working as a landscape architect. Show that it's possible for family farms to be sustainable, right? These are aspiration goals, but there's also lifestyle goals. Earn enough to pay for my kids' college, right? All of these goals start to give us implications for what role we're going to need in order to achieve that goal, right? Then it's about translating that goal into a role. Do you want to become a principal in your office? Is one of your roles to project manage projects of over $10 million, right? Become the VP of research at an organization focused on minority youth. I do want to say that there's multiple potential roles to achieve a goal, but it really is this process of translating skills into goals into roles, right? And then if you do that in a way that looks at your multiple interests and your multiple goals, you can then start to find these hybrid solutions just like you do on your projects. So to show what this looks like for a real person, this is one of my clients who had this goal to run a business in the future. It's not the right move for her current family at her current family situation. But so she was able to take her current job and to look at the projects that she's doing and to say, how can I tweak these projects to build the profile I'm going to need to have for this future business and to build my credibility in the subject area. She was then able to volunteer for a nonprofit and to use it to act on her values for this future business and to connect with future clients. And then she had a small side project that makes a little bit of money to experience low stakes business ownership, make some money for her family, have some fun, and ease into this future business role, right? So that's what it can look like when you have that goal. And then you can start to figure out, well, what are the ways I can get there and how can I leverage what I'm currently doing in order to get there? Now, what I do have to say is that here's where a lot of people get stuck. We are in our organization, our agency, our firm, and we just look up and we see who's above us. And, you know, sometimes we actually have to get out of our echo chamber. Sometimes it's the echo chamber of our firm or our organization. Sometimes it's even the echo chamber of our field and start to say, well, if I did want to change the elder care experience, what are people in other fields doing in order to do that? Because what you might need to do is you might need to say, well, hey, there's a director of coastal resilience at this firm, but not at my firm. Hey, why don't I advocate for that to be created at my firm, right? And, you know, how did they get there and how do I push for that to happen here? How do I propose that, right? Or maybe you need to take an innovation from another field into yours and say, well, they're doing this in this field. What if we did this here? I think there's a great strategy that we could use in order to change the way that we relate with the way that we do this kind of interaction with community. Getting out of your echo chamber also helps give you a more diverse network, which is basically career insurance, right? So, you know, the built environment fields are very cyclical and, you know, stuff happens, projects dry up. But if you have a network outside of your job, outside of your coworkers, then, you know, those are the people who you call up or who call you up when there's an opportunity that is right for you, right? That's how you get headhunted into your next job instead of having to, you know, run around, you know, knocking on doors and turning in CVs. So, all right. We're going to pause here before I tell you the next two steps, but I just want to hear from you in the chat. Do you have a career direction that is clear enough to act on? Okay, hearing no from some people. No, not until I can get my foot in the door. Okay, yep. Someone saying, here's what I'd like to do. Okay, great. And then let's figure out how to get strategic about that time. Yes, some people hear yes, some people don't. Some people are saying maybe-ish. Okay, so now we're going to go a little bit deeper on what do you do once you have that direction. So once you have that goal, that higher level goal in that direction, then you can figure out how to get there, and you can figure out how to get there in a step-by-step way that is smarter, not harder. So, you know, one of my clients, you know, she realized that she wanted to be a principal in the practice strategy. So what she was able to do was to research how other people have gotten there and to basically use that in order to create a step-by-step plan, right? Okay, well, here's the milestones that they were able to get through. And you can, you know, I just want to say, there's never been a better time to figure out how to get somewhere. I had a client who was a screenwriter. She's like, how do I get an Emmy? And, you know, the information was out there in podcast interviews, in conversations she had with people, right? It's so much easier to figure out, well, how have other people gotten there? And then what would be my step-by-step strategy in order to get there? Just like if you're going to do a phasing plan for one of your projects, you can do a phasing plan for your career. Now, in order to do that and to find that key information, what you have to do is get clear on what your gaps of knowledge about that pathway are. So it might be, well, how does someone get chosen to become a director, right? What do you have to prove in order to do that? When you understand what those gaps are, you can also craft better questions that help reveal invisible rules of advancement, right? So it might be like, oh, well, what you really need is you need to be seen as a leader. And okay, well, what does that mean? Oh, you need to have a couple of important relationships with XYZ, right? You can ask those questions. So just to give you a sense of what those better questions look like, and you might do this with people in your organization, you might do this with people in your field, tell me about the last time you saw someone get promoted into that role. What do you think were the 2 to 3 factors that led to them being chosen? Okay, well, in that job, right, what are the 2 to 3 things you absolutely have to do in order to keep it, right? There's a million a million qualifications, but like, what are the core functions that that job really has to do in order to be successful? Because a list of 12 things, there's actually probably 2 or 3 that are the most important. Or if you're job searching and you're trying to figure out, how do I find an aligned place? Well, what are the 2 to 3 organizations that you think do this best, right? So that you can, cut through the noise of all the places you could work and then find the places that you should spend your energy informationally interviewing. You can also use these better questions to find out, to vet whether, do you want to be a director? Do you want to be a manager? Like, what's it actually like to do that, right? Will I have opportunities to do field research, right? You can get your questions answered so it's not just murky how to get there. So you can also use this, and I won't go super into depth in this, although I did just post an article about it, but you can use the same process about finding out what the gaps are and then asking questions about how to fill that gaps on your performance review. So, hey, I would like to be promoted into XYZ. What are the gaps between me and senior associate? Great. Oh, I need to do this. I need to have this relationship. Great. Here's my plan of how I'm going to build those relationships. Do you have any suggestions? And then really tracking and checking in. Oh, when's the next time I could join you at that networking event so I could meet a couple people, right? When's the next time I can go on is there a client interview coming up next month so I can get more exposure to XYZ? Is there anything else I have to do, right? So just like a project, you can also track your career growth if you're clear on what you're trying to achieve. So this is one of my clients. She, I had her do a matrix of all of the qualifications of this role she wanted. And at first she was struggling with imposter syndrome, but she was like, well, I'm an engineer. I love matrices. I love my spreadsheets. And it was great to have this non-emotional tool to say, oh, here's what they're asking for. Here's what I've done. Okay, great. Problem to be solved. I don't have to just be stressed out and have my limiting beliefs get in the way, because part of why we start with that foundation of confidence is that as you do this work, you're going to be like, well, I don't know, I'll have to travel too much. But what if you did that role without traveling, right? What if you reinterpreted the role? Or, they'll never choose me. I shouldn't aim to win a second Emmy because, I'm little old me and I've never published anything before. What I always recommend, because again, your sense of what's possible for you just might not be in line with reality because of imposter syndrome. I would rather have you shoot for the stars. And even if you land on the moon, right? Even if you don't win an Emmy, you just, you get a funded documentary, then at least that's still pretty good. And it's bigger than you would have if you weren't aiming for that Emmy, right? It's kind of like, oh, I guess I can share this here because y'all know who Daniel Burnham is. It's like Daniel Burnham, right? Like make no small plans because they have no power to stir people's hearts, right? So don't make small plans about your career because you will still land somewhere way better if you make a bigger plan. So back to you. Where do you think you could use some help on the step-by-step process? So number 1, starting with you, finding out what drives you. Number 2, turning your strengths and goals into a understanding what's possible, right? Those strengths and interest into a career goal. Number 3, figuring out how to get there. Or number 4, understanding, wait, what was number 4? Sorry. Number 4 is, understanding how to get there. Yeah. Suspending your limiting beliefs in terms of getting there. Okay, people are saying number 2, understanding how to get there. Mostly 2 and a dash of 4. Okay, a little bit of, limiting beliefs. The cool thing about this work is it kind of helps you push past your limiting beliefs through doing the work. Yeah. Motivation and plans, a little bit of fear of sounding uneducated. Okay, yep. So maybe it's a little bit of like power habits. Okay. So last step to this is that you want to, once you get clear on where you want to go, you also want to make sure that you set a really clear intention. This is where all the multi-passionate people I work with can get a little bit stuck. So, you want to choose one clear goal or role, and that is your central or primary goal. Sometimes people will focus on too many things at the same time, and you don't want to just say like, well, I'm doing this and this and this and this and this and smoosh them all together, because then you won't be able, because you're afraid of losing them. You really want to say which is the primary goal here, because then you'll be able to design a strategy around that. Now, you might be feeling scared, right? You might be feeling like, well, but what if I choose the wrong one? But let me tell you why you want to just choose one to focus on, because if it turns out it's not quite the right fit, you can then, in pursuit of it, usually what happens is that, it's kind of like if you're trying to get to either San Francisco or, like San Diego, and you're in Providence, Rhode Island, like, you just got to start driving across the country, and over time your GPS will update and get a little bit more precise. And if you need to turn slightly south, you'll go slightly south, but you won't have made that progress towards California, right, if you haven't started moving towards that goal, right, and started taking action towards it. And oftentimes amazing things come along that you couldn't have even expected. So I had a client start a research effort, and then it turned out that her firm was like, oh, this could be an incredible business development thing. And they basically said, we take your research project and raise you this much bigger, more well-resourced effort, because this is going to help us push our goals forward instead of it just being your side project. Now, if you're like, but what, I don't want to leave beside all my other things that I love, then what you do once you have that primary goal is to bake in the other pieces of your desires, right? So let's say that you would love to be an author, but you decide your primary goal is not to write a book. Well, maybe you could write a book in service of the impact you're trying to make as an urban planner, right? Or, let's say you love to travel. Well, then go for a role as global VP instead of regular VP. Once you have that primary goal, you can use that design thinking process to synthesize the other things that you want into that role. Or you can say, just like my painting practice, this is something I want and I prioritize, and I'm really clear what is the primary goal, and then what is the thing that I'm doing when I have time for it, right? Now, here's the reason why you want to have this intention and why you want to get clear on that. You can do less, but you can accomplish more. You know what you can let go of, and like, oh, I need to be better technical expert. Oh, wait, that's not where I'm going. That's your priority. That's my insecurity, right? And you can also figure out what to not do and get the most strategic bang out of the buck of your time, right? And you can also command more compensation because it's clear what you stand for and you can advocate for your value. Now, once you've made this step-by-step plan, right, you have your clear intention, you have your goal, what you want to do is then ignore everything up there and just focus on your next step. So I actually have my clients put together 8-week action plans, and it's just like, okay, I need to get my first proposal out the door. Great, that's all I'm working on. I put blinders on, and I recommend that they only work on 2 to 4 strategies, career growth strategies at the same time. And it might be even as simple as, I'm going to propose an idea at every project, right? It might just be a power habit, but it's really about step by step, week by week, moving towards that next milestone on your list. Okay, so let's go on to our last section here, which is creativity. So how do you infuse fulfilling projects and initiatives into your work? And I want to share 2 specific ways, strategic ways to do it. So the first is to make a project more creative. So I had a client who's a real estate developer. She's a community-based real estate developer. And so she has 10 projects. She's moving through the pipeline at any given point. And we said, you're trying to make this ultimate impact on, I'm going to make it anonymous here, but she's trying to make an ultimate impact in demonstrating the specific approach to economic development through affordable housing, right? So which projects in your pipeline have the potential to be demonstration projects on that? Oh, great, these 2. Well, what if we raised more money? What if we, brought in 1 or 2 more partners? What if we, added a much more deep community engagement process? And so what she's doing is spending 40% of her time on these 2 high potential projects, and then 60% of her time on the rest of the projects, which are great and are part of her pipeline. But, these 2 projects, she's basically made these projects growth opportunities in her career. You can do it through, finding a skill that you love to use and finding a way to integrate that into your project, learning a new skill, connecting with a collaborator, right? I've brought artists into projects of mine, or, taking a value that you care about and integrating it into we want to run our internship program in a specific way that works with Indigenous populations, right? Okay, great. We're going to run the internship program, which we were going to run anyways, but we're going to do it differently this year. Now, you can also make your profile creative. So doing this will also help you build that career resiliency. It'll help you get known. And when you approach it in a creative way, you can do it without feeling self-promotional because it becomes something fun. So whether it's social media or panels or writing or presentations, don't use it to just be like, I'm an expert. Use it to develop your expertise, right? Put out a series on, interesting approaches to economic development, partnering with artists, right? And use it to learn rather than use it to just share what you already know. And it's also a great way to connect with collaborators and people in your network you'd love to work with. So just a specific example, this is Tamara Roy, who's an architect. She does multifamily housing development work. And when she was the president of her local industry group, she focused her entire year on housing affordability. And so she was able to convene conversations about making housing more affordable. She also, with her team inside her firm, built a full-sized mock-up of a micro unit, and she used that as a way to grow their leadership and experience. And then they toured it around town. And not only was she named the mother of the micro unit by the Boston Globe, but I think that her work and part of that, proof of concept that she was able to generate was part of getting Boston, which is like way into parking, actually changed their regulations to make it easier to develop micro housing without all of the kind of onerous requirements. So these creative profile building projects or into projects infused into the projects you're already doing can actually also help you make impact. So just to recap, here's what you learned today. You learned how to build confidence through power habits, right? 5 minutes a day, and make sure that they not only help you move forward, but they help you build that mindset to get that plan A life. You learned how to map out a plan for your career trajectory, right? Step by step, and how getting that clear intention, filling in the understanding, how to fill in your gaps of knowledge so that you can get that step-by-step plan can help you do less, but achieve more because you know exactly what you need to do next. And we also helped you look at 2 strategic ways to infuse fulfilling projects and initiatives into your work. And bonus, they also help build your visibility and your career resiliency. So I want to hear in the chat, when you think about that career goal that you shared, which tip from today is going to be the most helpful for you in reaching that goal? Okay, I'm hearing people say creativity. Yeah, the power habits. Yes, I love the power habits because you can kind of get started on it. Like you can get started on it in the 5 minutes after this webinar. The no diet. Yes, 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 yes. I love it. I love it. And if the next position is not the perfect fit, we'll use the opportunity to shape path to the next goal. Yes, that's exactly right. You can take any role and reinterpret it in order, you still have to do the outcomes, achieve the outcomes of the goal, but there's so many ways to do your job in order to also get other fulfillment or to build towards a bigger strategy. So, okay, today you're here because you want clarity in your career path, you want confidence in your career path, and you want it on your own terms, and you want to integrate all the parts of you into an exciting and powerful career, but you don't necessarily know exactly where to start. And you don't need another self-help book or another panel discussion, right? You're ready to make a change. You're ready to take action and to know exactly what you need to do. So now is your time. It's your time to experience the continuously creative, collaborative, impactful career that I know that you want. And it is your time to stop figuring out how to figure out how to do that so that you have a your time is precious so that you know exactly how to move forward. It's time to grow your career with a step-by-step system. So I just want to say that nothing I've shared here today is theory or ideas. These are all things that have worked with me and with my clients. At this point, I've worked with probably going on 100 clients one-on-one, not to mention hundreds of people in workshops, right? And so I've kind of seen it all before, and I've seen where people get stuck. And I also want to say that none of them have any particular advantages or special skills that you don't have. No secret resources, no, expensive resources. It's just a system that works. And if they can do it, then you can too. So introducing the Creative Career Blueprint, which is my program to create confidence, clarity, and creativity in your career. It's my career design system. So this is Jess, who's one of my clients who she was doing a real estate job and doing a lot of admin, and she was able to build visibility around her expertise on healthy homes, which was what she really wanted. She reinterpreted her job. She stopped doing the admin work she didn't want to do. She started doing the work she did want to do. She got promoted to senior design manager, and her boss actually said, she didn't bring this up. He said, oh, we haven't talked about your compensation in a while. And she ended up getting a $25,000 raise to do less of the work she didn't want to do and more of the work that she did want to do. So again, you can have that more, with less and more of what you actually want to be doing. So this is Naomi, who's a researcher and one of my clients. So she actually lost her job during COVID and was able to get rehired during COVID. And she got her job in a record amount of time. And it wasn't just like a make it through the pandemic job. It was, step up in salary, organization, step up in management level. And she's working on issues of minority youth, which is what she ultimately wants to do. So also that values alignment. So in the program, you're going to get 5 modules, 3 bonuses, which I'm going to share about, worksheets so that you can watch the videos and just make decisions for yourself, templates and scripts, because I never want you to have to reinvent the wheel or write an email, and like rewrite it 17 times. Checklists so that you know exactly what you need to do next, and then video and audio training. And what you're going to have when you walk out of the program is you're going to have that confidence to take bold action. You're going to have clarity in your career path with a plan for the next 3 milestones of your career. And you're going to know exactly what you need to do in order to get there, right? I want you to know exactly the next action. And you're going to have more opportunities for that creativity and impact in your job. And you're also going to be able to advocate for yourself for the raises and promotions and opportunities, career opportunities that you want. So the first module is mindset and confidence, and you will identify the core limiting beliefs that are specific to you, that are holding you back. And then you're going to remake your mindset with those personalized power habits that are, 5-minute power habits, so that you can practice confidence and then actually attract those opportunities that you want, instead of feeling like you have to hustle all the time. I can't tell you how often, I've put a client on a no diet and they come back with like, and then this happened. And it's because they changed their mindset. In the second module, you're going to design your career trajectory. So I take you through that step-by-step process that I walked you through with worksheets so that you design that career trajectory, you design those 3 milestones, and then you can also identify if your current organization is a place that you can achieve your goals and whether you can leverage it and use that to grow into where you want to grow, or, okay, is it time for me to go, right? Should I stay or should I go? Third module is all about infusing creativity into your career as a strategy. So making your work more creative and also learning how to propose better projects and to bravely position them and to bring them to the table and get your leadership team on board so that you can do the work that you want. Module 4 is about using that creativity to build your profile so that you can become sought after, both at your current organization or agency, but also it's that career resiliency, right? So you can work with the people that you want or collaborate with the people you want or get hired. And it will help you build internal credibility and visibility at your organization, but then also to build external relationships. And I'm going to show you how to get on panels, get fellowships, be on virtual summits, show your expertise, become a writer, get your work published, whatever you want to do in order to build that profile in a way that feels creative. And then finally, and I'm excited about this one because this is exactly what I love to work on with the APA, you have a module on gaining compensation for your worth. So I have a 10-day process with worksheets, with prompts, with even like draft language, what you should say if someone counters, if someone gives you an objection to, oh, well, that's kind of a high salary. Specific language that you can use to prepare for your salary negotiations or your performance reviews so that you can walk out with what you want. And you can also feel more confident in doing it. Now, I just got to say, my program, we have so many templates, we have so many scripts. I never want you to be stuck trying to figure out how to figure out. So whether it's for, a virtual coffee date or an elevator pitch or, a conference blurb, we've got templates for all of these things so that you can actually get to taking action and putting yourself out there. Now, a couple of bonuses, and these are bonuses that are part of the special offer. So we have 6 months access. We're giving you 6 months access to our private community forum so that you can get questions answered, get advice, get feedback from me. I'm in there. I respond to questions if you're getting stuck or if you're ever having issues. I never want you to get stuck, so I will always help you move forward. It's also being able to tap into support, right? I had a client who had to say negotiate and also like say goodbye to her boss when she was leaving, and she was like, I just got so much support from the community who just like helped me figure out how to approach this. Second bonus is my Smarter Not Harder audit. So if you are busy, or if you feel like, oh, I'm too busy to do this, I just wish I had more time, this will help you free up hours of your time per week, because it's helping you not people please, it's helping you figure out how to delegate, it's helping you figure out how to eliminate and how to say no in a really tactical way. And then finally, if you are job searching, I'm also including my job search suite, which is my highly efficient system, step-by-step order of operations that also has templates like my cover letter Mad Libs, my process for preparing for both a cover letter, it feeds into the cover letter Mad Libs, but then also it helps you prepare for your interview. All right, so there's an optional add-on. So you can get 6 months of group Q&A calls. These are twice per month calls that are live, where you can get live advice from me on your situation and answers to your question as you go through the program. You can also connect with other women live who are in the program. So, these are just some examples of, if you get stuck, or if you're asking, you want to pitch something and you're wanting advice or brainstorming on how to pitch the Director of Coastal Resilience job. Those are some of the things you can bring to that session. And, just if you're the kind of person who likes to talk things out, right? I know that I am, right? My coaching programs, I always want to have a live call because that's how the light bulb goes off for me when I hear my coach say something or I get to articulate something out loud. So that's something that you can add. All right, so how do you actually start? How do you actually join us? So I'm popping this in the chat box. So if you go to the to this website, so bit.ly/CCBAPA, all caps, you will get access to our special offer, and there's that enroll now button. So just to kind of share a little bit of what you can expect or what might happen for you. This is Carrie Nemi. She works for a national affordable housing organization. And she said, I changed the way I talk about myself to my colleagues and to people outside of my organization. I'm creating the job I love inside my job and making sure that I'm doing the things that I really value at work. So if you want to join us, please join us. There's that enroll button, and let's talk about the investment. So hiring someone to do this would cost you $5K or above, because if you want to bring all of this together, you'd have to hire a mindset coach, a personal branding expert, a career coach, and I bring all of those together into one system. And I also do it understanding the built environment, design, architecture, engineering, urban planning realm, right? I understand those career paths. You could join a leadership program, right? Maybe you've seen one in your local industry group, but these programs are very top down. You're going to get a lot of seminars and hearing about people's stories, but you're not necessarily going to get a step-by-step of what your path is. Or, what do we do for professional development? You go to a conference, you pay for hotel, and you have a lot of information thrown at you, but it doesn't necessarily tell you what your pathway should be. So if you join us today, and this is part of the special offer for APA Women's Division members, you can join today for just $229 and 5 monthly payments of $229 to follow, or you can pay in full and save some money. And this is $200 off just for APA for the special offer. And if you decide that you want to add that group coaching so that you can have that live debate and discussion, you can join for just $429 or one payment of $24.97. And you can save $300 off of the cost of the program. Now, I just want to say that even just the compensation module alone is worth the cost of the program, right? If you can like $2,500 raise is not that much of a raise, and you can probably exceed that just in that module. But I wanted you to have the whole thing because I want you to make more money, but I also know that you really want to have that career that is really the career that you like, is your dream career, that sometimes you're afraid to really think like, can I have the one that I want? So again, go to bit.ly/CCB-APA, and I pop that in the chat box. Enrolling is super, super easy. It'll ask you to choose your option. You'll enter your details and you can pick your payment option, and then you can complete your order. And you'll have a chance to add group Q&A calls in the checkout process. Now, yeah, it's like, and all you need today is $229 to start. So I know you might have some questions, so start getting them ready. Just a few that have come up, right? Do I have to figure out what I want before I take this? No. This is why I created this program, because I didn't want you to wait to figure it all out before you got started. So Sri Roshi, who took my program, she's like, it forced me to pick a direction for my career, get out of my comfort zone, and just go for it. It gives you a systematic approach that creatively allows you to become whoever you want. Kristen also had the same hesitation, right? But she was unhappy in her job. And even though she'd worked hard to get there, she wasn't feeling, it just like wasn't what she wanted, but it allowed her to chart a path for herself and to actually approach someone for a leadership position and basically to talk her way into the leadership position she wants. And now she's happy in her work. You might be thinking, well, do I have enough time to do this? I'm too busy to make a change. So Lauren's one of my clients who had a really tough year. And, she said, thanks to your program, I got the structure and support to put myself first, even though this past year was difficult family-wise, and to make moves to make my life better. Lauren was also able to negotiate a 30% raise and negotiate a later start date for her new job that she feels much more creative and satisfied in, so that she could take some much needed rest time. Or you might be thinking, well, does this only work for people who are extroverts? So remember Naomi. Naomi is an introvert, and she said, networking events never worked for me, but she used a very network-based approach to find that job. And she said, Maya gave me a formula and a format that I could use to reach out to people. And not only did it help with the job search, but it's honestly helping me make new friends in the new city that I moved to for this new job. So this is a special offer just for today, just for this week, actually. It closes on Friday. And you can save $200 when you join today and also get access to those special bonuses that I mentioned. I really hope that you will join us, because I would love to be seeing you in the program. I would love to be cheering you on and helping you figure out those thorny issues. And, not only, like one of my clients, Kate, not only did she move from a manager to a director role, but she actually was able to double her salary. So, I want you to have all the things you want. So I hope you go to that website, and then please join us today. And I think now I can open it up to answer whatever questions you have, either about the program or about anything that I shared today in your own situation.
Oh my goodness, Maya, that is so wonderful. Thank you so much for just the content is so rich in what you provide. I just want to just say thank you for sharing all of that with us. I think it is so uncommon for us to learn new ways of building ourselves. Sometimes we just think of the industry and how it has been, for decades, and how do we fit into a mold, but this is molding yourself and be able to really thrive in new ways. And so I think that it is so key, and I couldn't be more excited that we brought this, to our membership today, and all of what you offer is just above and beyond, what we're used to. And I think that is just like the best. So I don't want to take away from questions, because I know we have some here. So we have, let's see, we have some, so we have someone who's wondering about maybe a supervisory position. Their boss is going out on maternity leave in a few months, and to be able to prove herself while her manager is away, or director. And then how can, she perform in that position? And then, so it's more of a salary level that she wants to be at. So how could she navigate that?
Yeah, okay. So here's how I'd recommend thinking about it. You want to find out about the core functions of the job, right? There's a lot of stuff that's on people's to-do lists, right? If you look at any job description, it's like 17 things, but like, what are the core things that drive the business value? And, if you work in a government, like the ultimate impact that it's meant to make, and then make sure that that's 60% of what you're focusing on. But then you want to be thinking about, who do you want to be? What impacts do you want to make? What are the other things that drive you? What are your values? What are your skills? And then 40% of your work, you want to be pushing those things forward so that you can be differentiating yourself. So it might be that you are particularly passionate about changing the way that government does community engagement and making it more two-way and less top-down. So then how do you take her responsibility to run public meetings and use it as an opportunity to shine and really kind of demonstrate, just like, oh, what if we experimented with just, at the beginning, why don't we use this one new exercise that I've been thinking about? Why don't we do that this way, right? So you always have to make sure that you're achieving those core goals, but I think it would be such a mistake to not like let yourself freestyle a little bit and use it as an opportunity to do things your own way. And then what you can do is everything that you achieve, you write it down, and then when she comes back, or then you want to say, here's what I've been able to do in this role. Even if you're not able to move upwards because the only way is up, you can say, I'd like to think about, a raise in responsibility and therefore also a raise in compensation.
Thanks so much, Maya. So that everyone knows, I am living the full working from home experience. Not only do I have my 5-year-old outside my door, I'm also having some work done. So I hope everyone can still hear okay. We do have a lot of students on the call today, which is awesome. And we're so happy you guys could join us. And I really want to underscore some of the comments that we saw in the chat about, a lot of folks just starting out were feeling a lack of confidence. They were feeling imposter syndrome. And I will say personally, those definitely have been issues that I've had to deal with over the course of my career. But we did have a couple of student-specific questions. There are about whether or not your program is appropriate for students who are just starting out. Maybe they don't have much experience. So that's part A. And then part B is we have a student who's graduating and is really kind of running into a crunch for time and figuring out where to go before the graduation, and also trying to figure out how to apply for jobs during COVID, which is definitely a unique situation. So perhaps you could speak to a couple of the student questions we have.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so number one, is this program good for students? So if you are a master's student and you have previous experience, then this program can be good for you because you can use it to figure out how do you want to do those early years on the job. If I have people come to me and they have no work experience, my first response is, and you can't answer the questions, what are your hard skills, soft skills, or aspirations, because you just haven't had enough experience, go get that experience before you take the program. But this program is helpful for you if you've got a few years of experience and you just want to figure out how do I leverage this job in order to get there. It's also very helpful for you if you are kind of mid-level and you feel like either you've been sidelined or for some of my clients sometimes have to get their license and then they're like, what's the next rung? I got to figure out what to do next. What do I want to do? So if you're facing that, or if you're plateauing, right? Some people who are plateauing and they're like, I lost my verve. I would say make sure master students, great. If not, get a couple years of experience under your belt so you've got some grist to work with. To people who are job searching now, this is the advice I give most of my clients. You will get something, you do need to be applying for jobs that are out there, but using a network-based approach is always what I recommend, because it turns out that 85% of jobs never even get posted, I've heard. So talk to who you know and find out who they know and say, oh, I'm looking for a job in XYZ. Do you know anyone? Who should I be chatting? I'm looking to talk to more people in this field. Do you know anyone I should chat with about that? And then really using that. Oh, is there anything that's come across your plate that you've seen? That's how you land your best job. And if you need to find something tomorrow, then, be applying for jobs quickly and be looking, get your backup plan in place, but make sure that you're doing that as you use a network-based approach, which is one of the things I teach in my job search suite, because that's how you're really going to find the good stuff. And that's also how you can be efficient about it, is like, okay, I use 1 hour, like I look at the job boards. This is what we go through in my order of operations. I look at the job boards. I have, I reach out to one person, new person every week, and to really turn it into almost like a set it and forget it habit is what I teach to my clients.
I think that is so valuable. I think there's a way that, we have, looked at jobs and, just compared, what our resume, has been is what you mentioned, in the way that you discussed that. And I think that we can say, this is what we want to be, and we can grow into a role and provide that confidence. We have a question kind of about that in terms of grad school, looking for that first job. And I think this may apply to, applying for any job. Is this person wants to know, can they be picky when looking for jobs at any stage? I would say at any stage. Do you feel that, women in roles feel like they can be choosy and not just take anything?
Yeah, yeah. So I think you should be picky, but let's we have to talk about real things like money and options. So I want to kind of talk about it almost as like an order of operations. So I think that, you need to think through, do I have the savings or the money, or can I afford to wait? Do I have other things that are in, do I have a couple of irons in the fire? Can I afford, one of my clients got laid off from her job. And so now she has a two-part strategy, and one is looking for roles. Her field is a field that has slowed down due to COVID, and the other is consulting gigs, right? And so she's using that to keep herself afloat while she waits for the industry to shift and change, right? Because she doesn't want to settle for something that's going to be, 3/4 of her salary, right? So you want to kind of assess, what do I need, and am I safe in the short term? And then you want to be thinking about, how do I then put myself in the best position to get what I really want instead of just what I think I can get. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you are applying for at least a proportion of jobs that feel like a stretch, that you're having conversations with people so that you can build that know, like, and trust. And whenever, when my clients start to kind of maybe get like a proto job offer, or they're getting that, that first interview or that second interview, that's the time when you want to go out to those other relationships or those other potential job options and say, hey, it looks like things are speeding up with one of my job opportunities, but I'm very, very interested in this organization. I think I may need to say, it's possible that this is going to turn into something where there's a yes or no. So I wanted to, relink with a conversation with you and see, is this something that you think you're going to want to move forward on? Because I don't want to lose the opportunity to work with you. And what you're doing is you're creating what's called a best alternative to a negotiated agreement, because then ideally, if you can work it out where you have a couple of options, you won't feel pressured to just pick this one thing. You'll be like, well, I really love the responsibility of here, but the compensation of there, and you will feel more powerful. But you can also say, I love this firm, or, I love the responsibility here, but I've been offered more compensation. What can we do on salary, right? And you might be able to take what you love and smoosh it into the one that you actually want, and use each opportunity to negotiate for what you want and the one you ultimately choose.
Yeah, that's a great tip, Maya, to try to make the best of two situations. And then, also the whole, networking when you don't need it. If you wait until you actually need your network, it's really too late. So, always proactively networking. I love how you're always emphasizing that. I want to switch to a question. And Maya, I think you mentioned we have a few more minutes.
I can stay a little bit longer for anyone who wants to get some questions answered. So
okay. Well, I do want to switch to a question that's a little more sensitive, which is we had a question from someone who was concerned about racism holding back their opportunities, and I know that you have worked with some very successful women of color, and I don't know if that's been something that you've been able to address, or how would you address that question?
Yeah. So one of the places it most comes up is in that mindset. Okay. So I gotta say, the way that I talk about mindset is not, I guess, like Tony Robbins, where it's like, you just have to believe in yourself, because privilege is real, right? Privilege is real, and internalized and externalized bias is real. And I think we do ourselves a disservice when we're not really absolutely clear about that. One of my clients of color, she realized, she was in an institution that's predominantly white, and she realized, people know about these opportunities before I do. And so how do they know that we're starting this initiative? No one told me. And she realized part of it is that they've got these networks of relationships where the office gossip is being passed around, and she's not getting let in on it, in part because, they're hanging out together, and they went to the same, this isn't technically true. I don't know if they went to the same summer camp, but like they have these shared cultural references, right? Just like similar dynamics happen with gender and mentorship. So the way that we work on that is through the mindset piece. And we're not like, well, you just need to be more popular with the white kids. The way that we think about it is, okay, this dynamic exists. So let's make sure that you're not blaming yourself for it. And then also, are there things that you can do to boost your power in this situation? So what this client ended up doing is she decided to create a one-on-one networking plan for herself where she would connect with people internally in her office one-on-one to build stronger know, like, and trust relationships, and to also use that as a way to find out the kind of organizational gossip that she wasn't finding out just being circled into their networks of power. So that's one of the ways we think about it. For another client of mine, part of it was also about, thinking through the kind of bias that she might face in, say, an interview, and, being able to kind of make sure that her fears that she's going to be perceived otherwise are like that she actually did some time to kind of practice for her interview so she could at least own some of the kind of body confidence. The way that I see it is that I think we need to get women in positions of power and influence so they can change the game for others. We need power structures to change, right? It's not all on women. And then individually, when we're facing this imperfect world, like this racist and sexist world, we need to give women navigation strategies to navigate the obstacles they're going to face. And we need to make sure that they do it in a way that they're not like, oh, this is my fault. This is a really unfortunate thing that I'm dealing with in order to grow. And I get to decide how I fight back to it and how I relate to it.
That is a really great kind of overview, and just sort of the emphasis on, on the change that needs to be created and how we can play a role in that and how we can bring along other people with us as we're doing that. And so I think that is so key. And, one thing we kind of talked about a little bit in a couple of questions that came together, there are folks who do feel that they have, that imposter syndrome. We have a couple people who commented on they want to lead more, they want to propose more, they want to speak up more in meetings. And so in your program, do you address that as part of your series, and maybe how that's influenced women, in their next steps?
Yeah. So yes. So we talk about it in Power Habits, right? One of the Power Habits is speak up once per meeting. I think related to the question that we talked about before, right, about race. So the truth is that women are perceived differently than men, and also people of color are perceived differently than men in most, or than white people in most situations. And so kind of knowing that that's the case, sometimes you have to figure out you might still say no, but you might need to learn how to say no differently. So actually, let me just I'm going to talk about this specific situation in terms of gender. Just to kind of express, like, how do you deal with that imposter syndrome? So you might say no when you feel, so a common expression of imposter syndrome is to take on more than you need to take on because you don't think you're valuable enough without it. So what is the antidote? Having a no diet. But women are perceived differently than men when they say no. So sometimes we need to learn, how do you say no in ways that don't kind of like deflect the bias. So it's unfortunate and it's angry and it pisses me off, but sometimes it's easier for women to say no because you're saying yes to something else. Oh, I would love to, I wish I could, but I can't because I'm doing this proposal for Mark, right? And so, like, I would love for you to just be able to say no on your own, but sometimes you're going to be able to get what you want without generating that pushback by saying no in a different way than a man is going to say no. And so I want you to be able to fully understand that context so that you know how to kind of practice it, knowing that kind of social superstructure that might be happening. And I guess, it shows up also in performance reviews and salary negotiation. So one of the things we talk about is that women can't negotiate the same direct, aggressive way that men can and necessarily get away with it. And so how do you use a more collaborative approach, which we are much more comfortable hearing about from women in order to get what you want? And so it's partially, there's a couple of layers here, but layer number one is, yes, these power habits can help you with imposter syndrome. Number two, they happen in a sexist and racist context. Number three, we give you skills for understanding how to practice these power habits with reference to the racist and sexist context that you might be operating in, so that you don't just like interrupt a guy or interrupt someone and then be perceived as that bossy woman, because I want you to kind of have a way to do it so you still get to say what you want to say, but you also can sidestep some of that bias that you might face.
Yeah, thanks so much, Maya. I know that that's something that we talked about on our other webinars is, you know, we do have to operate within this context. Do we wish it was different? Yes. Does it need to change? Yes. But I think you do a really nice job of helping people navigate the kind of the context in which we all have to operate. I'm going to go ahead and combine a couple of questions, and I think we'll be wrapping up. So there was a question. There's not a wait list for your program, right? That's my understanding. It's open and available.
Yeah. Right now it's not open to anyone except division members. So the 3 days right now is like just for you. And then when we do it'll be closed until our next launch. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then there is one other specific question, or a couple of other specific questions about your program that I'm going to try to condense.
Yeah.
So there's one about multiple days and scheduling for group phone calls, whether or not that's a possibility. And then also there's a question about whether the program helps folks look and hold themselves more like a leader, particularly when there aren't the examples out there of people like them. So maybe they don't see other examples, or there's never been a previous planning director. Is that also something that the program would cover?
Yep. Okay. So number one, let me just say, if you have any questions that we don't get to answer on this webinar, there is a contact form at the bottom of the page, the enrollment page. So you can shoot me a question. I would love to hear from you. So number two, so the group coaching calls are held at noon Eastern on Thursdays, every other week on Thursdays. If you can't make a session, but you have a question that you want to submit, we don't record the sessions just so that people can totally be themselves, but we will record your question and you'll get your question answered by me and by anyone else who weighs in on it. And we will record your section for you so that you are able to get the answers that you're seeking. And then finally, how do you hold yourself like a leader? One of the power habits is a power habit called WWXD. It's inspired by What Would Jesus Do? And I will leave the mystery there, but it actually is absolutely about body language. We do a lot of stuff around body language because our bodies influence our minds and our minds influence our bodies. And so we do a lot around body language, around how to hold yourself differently, how to speak differently, and how to kind of experiment with, you know, you don't have to have the one person who's the perfect model in order to find the traits and the practices to model yourself after. So we do, yeah, one of my power habits is specifically about that and about body language. Yeah.
Thank you so much for just kind of combining that and giving everyone sort of an idea of just, you know, the way that their career could take off given these principles. I don't think there has ever been sort of an attainable, incremental way of going about, you know, kind of furthering ourselves, not only, you know, professionally, but personally, in other ways, you know, that we live our lives. I think it is so well-rounded, and I'm just so excited that, you know, people would be able to be a part of this. And we're so lucky to have you today, Maya. And with that, I kind of want to just maybe close our webinar. I want to thank everyone for attending, for giving their, you know, their personal insight into what's going on, you know, in their world, which is amazing. And then to be able to share, you know, in these questions and to be able to just find out, you know, how can we do what we do better, and how can we maybe make a shift in our career that we never knew possible, which is the most exciting part about this. And so I don't know, Maya, if you want to have any closing words, but I just want to, on behalf of the division, thank you so much for your time and your energy and all that you have given us today. It's been so valuable, and we've never had anything like it. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah, I love it. I love what you guys are doing in the world. I love what women in planning are doing. So thank you for letting me bring this here. Cheers. Bye, everybody.